Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. You ever plant a seed of something you're not quite sure how it's going to turn out? Is this going to be a new friendship where you're going to be mutually supportive, or is it going to be an experience where you're like, I don't have to repeat that again? I do this all the time with hair care products. Is this going to assist my curls, or is this going to frizz me out? Sometimes we don't know until we engage in the activity. I have garden boxes that I shared with you. Earlier this summer, I planted some wildflower mix. Had no idea when it started coming up. Is that actually a wildflower? Because it was a mixture of them. Or is it a weed? Didn't know until they actually started producing some growth. And I went, oh, I think that is something I should keep. I'm seeing some buds of blooms and blossoms. And then there were times of, I don't think that came in the bag, because it's got these tendrils where it's wrapping around the other flowers and it's actually pulling them down. It's using that flower to climb up. You've got some things going on in your life where we need to start cleaning up, because it might actually be a weed instead of a wildflower. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover, should you really be forgiving, or has the forgiveness gone too far? Accountability partners or support systems. What's the difference between grace and enabling? And if you have to drag them in, you have to drag them around. What's your bottom? Okay, so let's start with forgiveness. And this comes from Mr. W, who is working with me right now, and said he participated in a meditation that was beautiful until it wasn't. Well, let's talk about the difference between meditation and hypnosis, because people are getting these confused. Meditation is meant to quiet the mind. That is all that it is meant to do. If it is engaging in something other than quieting the mind, such as it wants to take better actions or optimize your emotions or give more focus to those thoughts in a way where you upgrade your identity, that is hypnosis. And sometimes you can be working with a practitioner, whether it is a meditation teacher or it might be a hypnotist that isn't quite versed in what it is that they're supposed to be doing. You can run into an experience where you walk away going, that did not work the way it was supposed to. That might be a weed that needs to be plucked out. So forgiveness. So, let me give you an example of meditation versus hypnosis around forgiveness. A meditation might be once that you've moved into that state of tranquility and calm. It can be take a moment and think about your definition of forgiveness. And is it one that troubles the waters? Is it ones that muddy the experience that you want to have reflect back a beautiful image, like that lake between the mountains where you're not quite sure where the ground of the valley begins and what is simply a reflection in the lake? It is that clear, and you're looking in that lake and it mirrors back to you your true essence. And maybe there is something that's stirring the waters, because it is forgiveness in a way that doesn't reveal the real you. Let's ponder, let's reflect on that definition
and what needs to take place to get back to the clear image, to the clarity of who you really are. That could be a meditation. The meditation that was offered was, what do you need to do to be able to forgive others? Not bringing clarity, not quieting. So I'm already having a disagreement with what it is. All right. So it has you taking different actions and opening your heart, and then the person that you need to forgive, you're energetically hugging them. Oh, I got a problem with this. Big problem. Whether it's in real life or it's energetic. Do you really want to hug someone that has sliced you, diced you, and cut you into pieces, that has betrayed you to the point to where there was an experience created that could be called trauma? I don't think so. And so, have we taken forgiveness too far? That's my question. Now, take what you want and leave the rest. You know, when you're reading a book and you come across a phrase or a word that you don't understand and you decide to keep going on, well, your subconscious, which retains the knowledge that you're going over, stops because it's hung up on what you didn't understand. And so whatever you continue to do afterwards, it's going, no, we're not going to absorb that because we have a conflict here. So what I'm offering you may cause you a conflict. Okay. Instead of saying, I'm not going to be able to have an awareness of anything past that, and say, okay, well, when I do have a conflict, it's a conflict in values. And is this inviting me to a level where my values might be expressed in a healthier way? Or do I need to ponder it so I can choose, no, that is not an agreement with my values? Forgiveness, have we taken it too far? We're told to forgive others the way our higher power has forgiven us. But just what actually is asked on our part for our higher power to forgive us? Repentance. Now, repentance isn't chanting some phrase over and over again. Repentance says we go to our higher power and we're like, I messed up. I'm sorry. And then we're asked to engage in actions that show that we are moving into a higher expression of who we are. That's what we're asked to do in order to experience forgiveness from our higher power. And we will screw up again and again and again. And then we take the actions to make things better. And at some point, we don't screw up the same way. We're still going to screw up. Have we tainted and perverted the meaning of forgiveness and offered it to people who have not earned the right? Maybe they've said the words, I'm sorry, but nothing is showing different with their actions. Or maybe they don't think they have anything to apologize over. We don't have to be yoked to the experience that we went through with them. We can say, I'm taking that off. You can find somebody else that is going to help you plow this field of pain. So we no longer have to be yoked to them and the experience and repeating it again and again in our head. But we don't necessarily have to offer forgiveness if there is no repentance. So saying, oh, I'm going to give you a hug to somebody who will be more than happy to take that opportunity and use you for their benefit at your expense, that's not forgiveness. That is not having boundaries. Forgiveness, if we look at forgiveness, the way that God offers it, and saying, what are you going to do different? Now, do not confuse this with grace. That was a question my client this morning had. She said, what's the difference between grace and enabling? I cannot earn grace. It is given to me freely. So grace says that the greatest gift we have from our higher power is free will. And so we have free will to screw up our lives or to make them better. Grace is there to support us and say, we have gifts. There's no way we can be good enough to earn these gifts. And grace is given to all of us. So what about when we give someone else grace? Well, the greatest gift we can give them is free will and say, I'm going to be here to support you when you're congruent, when you're in alignment and harmony with the gift that I'm giving you. But that also means that I'm going to give you free will to screw up. And nowhere does it say God alleviates us from the consequences of us screwing up. Now, if you're a Christian, you could say, well, Jesus died. Yes, Jesus died to give us an afterlife in heaven. But it didn't say that Jesus died, so we don't have to experience the consequences of what we do on this physical plane that we're in right now. Now, there are things to where we can get congruent with the gifts that are given through grace to say, I couldn't earn it, and now I have to be harmonious with it in order to use the gift. It's kind of like giving the keys of a Ferrari to someone and going, do you have the identity to drive this car? Because if you do, you're going to be able to enjoy it at its fullest expression. But if you don't know how to drive it, then you're not going to be able to use it. So you have to upgrade who you are. That's the gifts that we're given through grace in our day-to-day experience. We don't earn them. We develop into them. But when you're giving those gifts of grace to someone in your environment, you're asking them to step up. But you're not alleviating them from the consequences of their free will. And if they make bad choices, well, you can be there to support them, but not to take away what they have to go through in order to make it right. Which brings us to accountability or support. Had two of my clients go, oh, we just started a group where we're going to be accountability partners for each other. I'm like, no, you're not. Because accountability says that the person you're being accountable to has a level of success above you, not over you. This is not a power over position. This is a position above you. And they know how to achieve it. So they're inviting you to take those steps and then saying, what do we need to do to refine those steps whenever you move through failure? That's an accountability partner. What you're probably looking at is that you have a support system through your partners, that they're going to help you by bringing their brilliance and what it is that they know how to do and combining it with yours, and the two of you together can create something more beautiful than they could on their own. But everybody's at the same level for support. So you cannot be held accountable by someone who does not have a power position above you. Which then leads to, is there transfer of authority? Is there transfer of power? And this was Miss J. Oh my gosh. Miss J's been through a surgery. Talked to her yesterday, and it has not gone well. And she looked for support from her family and her friends to assist her with the surgery that hasn't gone well. And it is a heck of a healing journey. And there are some people that are getting impatient with her healing. And so they've decided to take a power over her position, a place of power, not for transfer. They're not offering what they have to her. They are saying you're doing something wrong and you need to figure it out to get it right, or we're going to withhold our support. Okay. And so she reached out to me and said, oh my gosh, what is causing the people in my family to tell me I'm doing something wrong? What are they thinking? How can I, she didn't use the word convince, but that's what it came down to. How can I convince them that I really have this going on? You can't. And so that's what they're demanding of her. Convince me I'm wrong. Well, that gets into confirmation bias. You don't belong in someone else's head or their heart, because then we got two people with a problem. What they're doing is they're acting out of fear. And that fear says, you've always been the one that we can rely on. You are the ones we've always been able to count on. And we don't like it that you're in a position where we're actually being asked to step up into a leadership role. So get back to where you belong. And we're going to punish you by withholding our support until you do that. There's nothing she can say to convince them. In the same way, you have some people in your life that are committed to misunderstanding you in a way so they can punish you, so they don't have to step into the role of leadership that you're asking them to share with you in a time where you need support. If you got to drag them into your world to get them to understand, you're going to have to drag them around. No. So this is when you have to start looking at boundaries. Boundaries keep you safe. And then rules that restrict their access to you. When someone has a conversation of, well, you're not meeting my expectations, when you had reached out to them for support engagement, that's when you can say, all right. Now, I'm going to caution you, don't say I'm sorry. That's what most people do. I'm sorry. No. It is all right for you to say, allow me to disappoint you. Because right now, where your expectations are and what I can actually do are two different places. And I'm asking for support. If you can give me that support, then let's continue this conversation on how that might look. If you cannot, then you can let me know that, and I can continue this conversation with someone who can assist me where I'm at. That's an upgrade conversation. They're not going to like it. No one likes it when you draw boundaries. Nobody right off the bat. But it does give them the opportunity to understand, hey, they can continue with what you're requesting. If they don't want to go along with that request, then it needs to be concluded. But you are no longer open to them punishing you because you're not meeting their expectations. This is when you're transferring authority and power to them to say, this is what I need. Are you in a place to do that? If you're not, okay, let's move on. And that's when we begin to look at what's your bottom, not your backside that you're sitting on right now. What's your bottom as far as how far you'll allow things to go? This was another client, Miss D. Miss D is looking for a career position. But while she's doing that, we're not sure. She has to choose and choose consequences. Should she be looking for a job while she's looking for the career? We're not sure. I'm like, okay, how far will you allow it to go? How far will you allow the bank balance to go down? I mean, what's your bottom? Because you either choose how bad you're going to allow things to get, or other people will choose for you, and they will choose for you to where you pay the price for them to benefit at your expense. I was working with someone who's dealing with an addiction. I'm like, how far are you going to let it go? And they said death. I'm like, no, because that alleviates you from all responsibility. Let's bump up your bottom a little bit. How much pain are you willing to endure? You willing to allow everything to be taken away? And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, okay, then we need to begin to choose so you can see the signals that are going, hey, we're okay. Green, we can go, but yellow's caution. Red, stop. We're not going to go any further. So you either choose how bad you'll allow things to get with forgiveness and with support versus accountability, with a transfer of authority, with dragging them in, dragging them around. You've got to decide. Because if you don't, it's going to be based on your painful past, where someone allowed you to hit rock bottom and decided that it would be okay for you to be there in a way that they were blind to what you were experiencing. You don't have to go back there again. You can say, all right, I understand what to look for now. The weeds that are in my garden of growth. Is that weed actually a wildflower and it's going to produce blooms and blossoms? Or is it going to choke the life out of everything around it? And now I know what to look for and I can pull it out by the roots. The choice is yours. Oh my gosh, almost forgot. That if you want to take advantage of a gifted hypnosis audio that you can download and listen to that is going to assist you with all of this, the link is in the description to this podcast. All right. So until we get together again, I hope what you're producing in your garden of growth is congruent and it's harmonious with the beautiful you and the next level of your expression.